close to 8 o'clock. But I coded 3 things.
Hey, real quick, I need to let everybody know right now that we got continental breakfast tomorrow. Bring your meat! Bring your meat! Your meat! Hey, no, hey, before we get started with anything, this right here and you guys cured my heart. Alright? I'm good. So tonight, I will celebrate with my boys because we are the world champions.
That if they make me work 15 hours, that I would get Wednesday off for the Caps game. So this is I put in double work day just to be able to watch the Caps. That's how diehard I am. So
That sounds good, man. I just had a little glitch over here. If you was watching the feed, I didn't have my mic on. Now the mic should be good to go. So
we heard you fine on our side, but maybe it wasn't on the OBS.
Yeah, on the OBS, I hit the button when I by accident when I was doing something else. You know how it is trying to produce, engineer, and run the board at the same time, Robbie. It gets kind of hectic over here.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. We've got a busy night scheduled for us. We've got a lot to talk about. We're going to start off with some hockey talk. We got Anna Knox. You can sort of hear her in the background. We'll bring her in more formally in a second. And then we got, hopefully we're going to bring Brian Brennan on in a second, or in a little bit. He'll give a New York perspective on this matchup. As well as we'll break down a couple of these crazy series, and it was a really fun, it was a really fun round. I know they don't necessarily consider it part of the Stanley Cup playoffs. It's the NHL playoffs or something like that. But I enjoyed it. It was good hockey, so we'll talk a bit about that. And then to start the second hour, we'll have our last probably Wizards roundtable of the year. We might bring those NBA experts back on to talk about the NBA playoffs, but the Wizards have been formally eliminated. They have yet to win a bubble game. And we'll talk about that briefly. We'll also talk about a couple other things in the NBA as well. And then at about the 90-minute mark, we'll switch gears and talk about baseball and sort of the up and down week for the Nationals. Or the World Series defending Nationals, as I have to say.
It wasn't too much up and down. It was up and then down badly. So, yeah, we'll break down those games. And plus, they're in a game right now versus the Mets. They're up 5-0 in the top of the fourth. One man on. Cabrera just doubled, no outs. And I'm trying to see who that is at the plate now. I think that's Castro. Is that Castro? I can't tell. I'm still getting used to this new lineup with these new players, man. It's I'm still trying to figure them out now. Just getting into the swing of the season with them. Unfortunately, at 4-7 right now, but we'll definitely break that down in the MLB section of the show, which will probably be wrapping up. I guess we can go ahead and talk about the elephant in the room real quick before we get into hockey, since we do have some football news, even though it's not the positive variety. Darius Geis, if you haven't already know, we broke it, on our page. Got a lot of folks engaged on it. Darius Geis on allegations of domestic violence. I actually looked up some of the stuff today. Actually, it alleges that he choked his girlfriend to the point of she was unconscious, and on several occasions he's pushed her down or put her in situations where she injured herself. And apparently there are pictures, but there's some question into how soon after the interaction were the pictures taken, and there's a lot of stuff into it. We're not really going to get into all of that, but the Washington football team, excuse me, had severed ties with the second round pick. A lot of folks I've seen a lot of mixed reactions. Some folks still finding a way to blame Bruce Allen for making a bad draft pick, so they had to bring up his name. I saw some folks upset because of the allegations. They don't know what's what. It could be, false or whatever, which is a valid point. But when you get to the point where this stuff goes back, I think they said it was as far as back as March, and then they've done their investigation, and in August now they're officially charging him. I mean, the writing's pretty much on the wall that he's officially charged, and that's already issues with the disciplinary committee on the NFL, and with the allegations of sexual mistreatment that just came out recently with the Redskins. Got me again. With the Washington
swear, John.
With the Washington football team, Ron Rivera felt like it was best just to go ahead and sever ties and move forward with the other allegations that were made. They don't need any more bad press, any more distractions. So he went ahead and made a tough decision to cut Geis, which, he had potential, but he was on the injured list injured reserve list 3 times in 2 years. He played in 5 games for the team. You really don't know what he could have done, so it's unfortunate he gets cut. Second round pick with so much potential, but unfortunately he was in that situation. We spoke about it yesterday on At the Bar Radio about domestic situations that folks stay in that maybe they should get out of, especially an athlete. I wouldn't do it, and I'm broke. So if I'm a millionaire, I'm definitely not going to put myself in that situation where I could lose it all because of one incident, at home or something like that. Robbie, what do you take off of this Darius Geis situation? What's your feeling about the situation from what you?
I think if he had stayed healthy and he was a big contributor, there's a bigger question. I think if you're trying to change the culture in the locker room and change a name and rebrand yourself, I think it's a pretty easy decision. He hasn't produced enough to keep him. It's not worth the risk in my mind. And if he flourishes somewhere else later and we end up being wrong, then so be it. But it's not worth the risk in my mind.
And also, running back is stable's kind of full right now, so he kind of, with a numbers game also that somebody was going to be the odd man out. He had just posted a couple of weeks ago on IG that he was ready to, make some noise. Didn't make noise in the right way, so unfortunately, along with his legal troubles now, he's going to be looking for a new job if he doesn't get convicted in jail time of the stuff that they're accusing him of. And that's a whole nother story we'll talk about whenever that breaks. But it's an unfortunate situation, and all you can do is wish him the best and hope he makes better judgments in relationships. And if he did, put his hands on a young lady in that aspect also, because you can't be doing that. That's just a no-go. If you're broke or you're rich, you just can't be doing that. You just got to get away, man. You got to get away.
Dujane is watching. Hey, Dujane. I hope that you're well.
What's going on, DJ?
We'll have to get him on these Zooms as we get a little closer to the regular season with the Redskins, maybe in the upcoming weeks. So we'd love to have him back on for sure. But let's. I've just shared to like 50 Capitals groups, so let's switch gears here so they'd be like, what are we talking about? Football. And also Alexa seems to be wanting to get in on the conversation too. But we're gonna bring in our own special hockey analyst that knows more than Alexa does. And Anna Knox. We had a great show yesterday talking about some of the same stuff, and I really appreciated you and Gil joining me on Zoom, and people can go check that out on the page if they missed it. Also, will be up on my website a little bit later. If you click the audio button, you can hear it, but I haven't put the video up quite yet. I've had a busy day, but yeah, it was great hour-long talk of the current state of the Capitals, and we'll try to continue that rolling today. Yesterday we recapped all 3 games. Last week we recapped the first game, so I think we'll start with the Flyers game. But before we do, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you. And really, we truly appreciate your effort and time yesterday. Obviously, Gil and I are not Zoom savvy. And we'll see if we decide to move forward with it in the future. I like when we have more people on because it makes it a little bit easier. But no, I thought yesterday's show was really awesome, and it was especially great to talk after a post win.
Yeah, no, I'm super happy about the win. But before we get into the win, let's talk about that Flyers game a little bit. If you could break down that game, and then I'll get Carol's thoughts on it too.
Yeah, no problem. So last week you had the Caps versus Flyers, and we knew this was going to be hot because the Flyers are a bit on fire this season, and I think they've got something to prove to fans, especially. So the Flyers scored the only goals in the first and second period, and then even though they did score first in the third at 8:37, Travis Boyd scored at 8:49 with assists by Hagelin and Gudas. This was a game I walked away with kind of pros and cons. Unfortunately, the cons, terrible face-off. The numbers were terrible, something that we need to work on. And also, I was a bit of a lack of chemistry. I felt like the team was really off. And I don't know, some want to say it's because Carlson wasn't there, Eller. I don't know if that's the case, but they just really didn't seem to want to give it the 100% that we were all hoping for, and definitely was not 60 minutes of hockey. But I will say that the one absolute positive was Travis Boyd. I mean, way to step up and score a goal and do exactly what the team needed. And so that was awesome to see. And I think we spoke about that last night, but yeah, he was definitely the A+ in my book on during that game.
For sure. Carol, what were some of your thoughts on the tough Philly Flyers?
Yeah, I'm going to have to piggyback on what Anna said. They looked out of sync. Philly looked like the better team, the Chris team. They were forcing the action. I was noticing that the Caps weren't getting a lot of possession time in the offensive zone. They'd get one shot, and then it was over. You didn't see any forecheck. You didn't see any other plays that we've normally seen. They just seem, like you said, out of sync. I don't know if it's totally with Carlson not being there, but I know that's definitely, taking its toll on the offense, especially on the limited power plays this team has been on, and they have been on a lot of penalty kills. That's one of the other things. I think they had 5 or 6 penalties that game, so Philly just outplayed them, and it made the Caps look really, really bad that game. It was hard to watch that game all the way through.
Yeah, I definitely I think they're a real legitimate team out of the East. I think there's a reason why they got the number 1 seed through this. They were undefeated. They won all 3 games, and I don't think it's a fluke. I think that they are a complete team, and they picked up right where they left off. I mean, they were hot when the season was paused, and it's tough to then go a few months and then to be able to pick it right back up. I was very, very impressed by that team, and I am hopeful that Montreal, who took out Pittsburgh, can maybe do some of that trap system that works so well against Pittsburgh and just stifle Philly. And I don't know how they're going to stop them, but that's obviously my hope. But we'll see how it all turns out. But I mean, Philly was great in all 3 games. But yeah,
they truly were.
Yeah, Travis Boyd though was very impressive. I do have to say he's a really great hockey player, and he slotted in well for where Eller is. I am curious, since it's a 3:00 Wednesday game, I don't know if Eller is going to be able to make it just under that wire. If my math was correct, I think he had to wait until 10 on Wednesday. So that's unfortunate that we won't have him for game 1. But Boyd proved that he could be in that position, and I mean, he was the bright spot in that game for sure.
Absolutely.
Carol, any final thoughts before we switch on to the better game, we'll call it?
Just to piggyback what you said, Philly looks legitimate, Carolina looks legitimate, and when we break down these games going forward, we're really going to have a very intriguing playoffs. We talked about it last week with all the teams being fresh and pretty much a level playing field. and now you don't know what to expect because it's not going to be a typical NHL playoff.
Yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting because, and we'll break down some of these other rounds in a bit. Other first round matchups. We call it first round because it's technically the first round, but this was the play-in round. If anyone wants to be technical, and so the first real round, they've got two revenge games of sweeps that happened last year. So you got Carolina having an opportunity to, they had done really well, and then they hit Boston and got swept. And so they have a chance to redeem themselves in that one. And meanwhile, Tampa Bay has to see Columbus again, right? And Tampa Bay was thought to be a powerhouse team, one of the top teams in the league last year, and they ran into Columbus in the first round and got swept. And so it'll be interesting to see if there's going to be as many sweeps this year and who's able to take care of business. The Caps, and we'll get into this a little bit more, are the only team that are going to play a division rival in the first round across the entire NHL, which is really, really nuts. It's never happened before. It hasn't happened since they've switched to this new format. Luckily, we're switched back to the reseeding format, but even in that, the chances of it were really odd. I mean, especially in the West, the fact that it's 4 Pacific teams and 4 Central teams, and they're all one playing each other, and it's just the luck of the draw. But it'll be interesting because they wouldn't have played each other a lot. And I like that because so often in hockey, you play the same teams in the playoffs every year. And it'll be nice to have a couple of new matchups, at least on the West Coast. But let's get into that great Boston game.
Oh, absolutely. So yesterday the Caps played Boston, and I was ready for this one, even though it was blacked out on my TV, which was very frustrating. But John Walton, thank God for him. First period, at 1944, TJ Oshie scores with a wrister, unassisted. Fantastic to see him. He's just been one that has been truly impressive postseason, and I hope it keeps going. In the second period, there were no goals. And in the third period at 2:49, here we go, number 43, Tommy Wilson scores, assisted by Kovalchuk and Kempney. And then at 10:30, Boston scores their only goal, but the Caps get a W 2-1, and they're headed to the playoffs with the Islanders on Wednesday.
Yeah, it's interesting that the winners got to play the Islanders. That was like the consolation prize. And it was weird because those teams all ended up very close to each other. The Islanders, Carolina, a couple of teams that were all very stacked in there. So they're all, they could have slotted them anyway with the last, 20 games of the season or 15 games or whatever it was left. So getting Carolina or, getting the Islanders, it's not really an advantage one way or another. I am happy that we don't have to play Carolina just because they beat us last year. Although vengeance would have been nice too, but you don't want that to be held over them. Carol, what are some of your thoughts just breaking down this Boston game first?
Well, unfortunately, I didn't get to see anything but the highlights, but talking to you after the game yesterday, you saying that they were playing solid defense, they were getting in and out of the zone, there wasn't a lot of multiple shot flurries, which was one of the things that I noticed in the first couple of games, that the opponent would get a lot of possession time in the Capitals' defensive zone and cause some problems. Hopi was, doing his thing, but to be continuously putting him in that situation is not a good thing. The fact that, you said that they pretty much held it down on that end. They held Boston to 1 goal. They're missing their, top player, top scorer. So that's going to be interesting when we break down that series with them. But it was good to, hear that they played solid and saw some of the plays. And my man Tom Wilson getting the game-winning goal is always a good thing. I'm still working on getting my jersey. I ain't got it yet, but I'm still getting my Tom Wilson jersey.
So I did mention this last night on the show, but I'll mention it again. The Boston fans were relentless on Tom Wilson, going into the game, hoping that they get him between the numbers, and if he got injured, none of them would be sad. Just really, really trashy stuff, right? And I love that he got the game-winning goal with a skill play. He didn't do any illegal dirty hits. No one got in his face. No one hurt him. And he ended up in time. He was perfect. That was exactly what we want. Gil was talking about how we need to bottle up what Orlov did in that game. I think, we also need to bottle up what Tom Wilson did. I think if both of them can bring that every night, I think that we will win more games than we lose. And, because it's just, it really it opens up a lot of possibilities for us, right? On both the defensive end when Orlov is playing physical, but also on the offensive end when Tom Wilson is looked as this goon, and so they probably forget, oh, he's got wheels. I mean, he made a great hustle play, and top shelf Tommy, that was a beautiful goal. It's a skill goal. And just really some great stuff right there, and it's what we want to see from Tom Wilson. And
that side?
That side. Yep. There you go.
I got a prediction for the playoffs. I think Tom Wilson, just like we saw Kuzi step up in the 2018 run, I think we're going to see Tom Wilson step up and help this team in some key situations in this upcoming postseason.
I 100% agree. I even said last night that I think that we're just seeing that mature side of Tommy. That is just exactly what we need in the skill set, but also not dropping the gloves with every person. I think Hathaway has kind of stepped up into that role, and that's fine. I think he can handle his own. But number 43 has been nothing but impressive, and hats off to him. I think the only thing negative about that Boston game is that face-off percentage is just not where the Cap should be. It was better than the Flyers, but not fantastic. But I think that they're kind of getting into the groove. We talked last night. Holtz was awesome. He's in the right headspace. This is exactly what we needed. And Favari, we have to just acknowledge.
So good. He looked amazing.
15 minutes. And I was like, oh my God. Yes, let's keep going with this kid. Is awesome.
I would actually, honestly, if John Carlson is able to come back, Radko Gudas might be the odd man out. From at least what I saw in that first game, and I was also talking about this yesterday, that I think that it's important that people know that different matchups might require different players, right? So there might be a time where Radko Gudas is better. But honestly, this guy was solid, and I thought the whole defensive core, they didn't do anything outstanding that would step up other than the Orlov hit, right? But they were just solid. They were just not allowing multiple shots on Holtby. They were clearing it once he deflected away the simple one. They would allow some shots on goal, but not high danger ones. And that's really what you got to do. I mean, you're not going to have 0 shots against, right? But if you can try to limit the second chances and clearing the crease and making sure people don't do that dirty work down low, I think that's going to be really key. Carol, what's your other thoughts?
But that's the thing that's tricky. They were getting a lot of block shots, but they would just happen to ricochet back to the opposing team. So, I mean, it was a combination because they always had double-digit block shots. They were getting in the shooting lanes, but like I said, they were just out of sync. They weren't. Like normally when plays break out or, you have a block shot, they already pretty much have a setup of how they want to clear the zone. It was like they were in a little bit of disarray trying to get their formation set up in those situations. And I didn't really see a lot of offensive zone possession time on the Capitals end. And that's what we're going to have to see going to these playoffs, especially with the Islanders, knowing with Barry Trotz and knowing the type of game he's going to try to play. And I can't wait for us to break down now because that's going to be a hell of a series to break down and a hell of a series to watch.
I definitely agree with you. I think the other thing is special teams. Obviously, our penalty kill is pretty good, but we're playing against the Flyers and the Bruins, which are 2 really great penalty killers. So it was good practice for our power play, but we got to start showing up. I mean, the fact that we were like 1 for 21 against Philly all season on the power play, that's not going to get it done. And
Philly is tough squad on power play, and plus, Carlson's not there.
And
that's the kind of the X factor because he's like the quarterback.
But he was for a lot of the games during the season.
Games. I mean, Philly just a top penalty killing team. They keep their wheels moving. They are very aggressive and they take time and space away from you. And the Caps can play that game too, but they have to get it warmed up where they just passing the puck around, everybody's finding their spot. But Philly doesn't allow you to do that because they stay aggressive and taking time and space away, so you can't get comfortable out there. So they're going to have to figure out some things with the coaching staff to add some wrinkles to it. We've seen different things: Ovi at the point, Ovi at the top, maybe even Ovi down on a goal line. But they're going to have to do some things to switch it up to make it advantageous for them on the power play.
Yeah, for sure. So, as we talked about, the Islanders are going to be our opponent. So I thought we would complete our roundtable by bringing Brian Brennan in now to help us sort of analyze the Islanders. And
what's up, everybody?
Hey,
Hi, Brian.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, man, another day, baby, another show. You know how it is.
Yeah, for sure.
So we won't make you recap the last game in the series for the Rangers, but
thank you.
And we will all be on the bandwagon to hate Carolina forever. And so that's pretty easy for me. And but let's talk a little bit about this Islanders team, who had, I think, a pretty easy route to get here, because I don't think Florida's a very dangerous team. They probably should never have made the playoffs, right? Brian, you've seen them a couple of times. What are some of your thoughts on this Islanders team?
Well, they're a good team for sure. You're right. Florida really wasn't much of a competition for them. They pretty much rolled through that series. It was never really in question, even though Florida won a game. They crushed them in the last game, too, 5-1. The Islanders are a good team. You guys know Barry Trotz very well, of course, and you know what type of team he coaches. And they're very reflective of their coach. They play hard. They play tough. They don't have a ton of like household names in the league. Like Matthew Barzal, I think is probably their best player. He's not really a household name, but he is a very good player. They have some other guys too, like Pajot is really good. They acquired Andy Green from the Devils as well. You know, they're a good defensive team. Cal Clutterbuck too. It's going to be a good series, and I feel the same way about Clutterbuck. I'm not a fan at all.
Yeah, I hate that guy.
Yeah, their goalie is another familiar name to you Caps fans as well, Varlamov. So he actually played pretty well in the Florida series. So I'm interested to see how he does. I think this is going to be a really good matchup. I think this is going to be one of the more interesting first-round matchups for sure. It's really I'm really excited to see how Barry Trotz does against his old team. I think that's going to be really great. I think it's going to be a good series.
Cool. Yeah, I definitely. It's going to be weird. So 4-4 is the record against Barry Trotz, right? Since he's been their coach, we've won all the games on the island, lost all the games in Washington. So it's really curious now that we're going to a neutral site. What does that mean?
Right.
Yeah. So it's a very strange thing. It's very evenly matched for sure, because it's the same system going against itself. And their assistant coaches were our old assistant coaches. And, so, like, basically they're running the same exact thing that we are. So it's going to be like, playing mirror match on Sub-Zero.
It's the Spider-Man meme. It's the Spider-Man meme. You're pointing at each other.
Right, exactly. It's that, or back in the day, I remember mirror match on Mortal Kombat when, like, Sub-Zero would have to fight Sub-Zero again, right? So it reminds me of that a little bit. It'll be interesting for sure. Carol, what are some of your thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, that's what's going to make it so interesting, because Trotz is like the master and Reardon is like the trying to become the master. So Trotz, I give Trotz the upper hand in the coaching aspect of the series, and that's going to play a long way into how this series is going to go. If Reardon can make some in-game adjustments to what Trotz is going to try to do to him, then I'll have confidence in Reardon going forward. But Trotz knows this team, even though there's different people here now. He knows the core team. He knows, what they're going to do. Like I said, they know they run the similar offense and defense, just some tweaks here and there. So it's definitely going to be a chess match between these two teams, and I think it's going to come down to who gets the last change, because the Islanders have solid defense. They don't have anybody that, in my opinion, really stands out. I mean, you got Clutterbuck, but he's getting up there in age, and he can give you a big hit every now and again. But breakaways or anything like that, he's done. So, I mean, it's going to be an interesting matchup. It's just that I'm not really sure that Reardon has it, man. I think Trotz might make the Capitals regret it not giving him what he wanted in his contract. That's just this series has me concerned. I'm going to say I predicted the Caps would win it all, but this series does have me concerned.
Yeah, real quickly, and then I want to get Anna's thoughts, but I am very concerned as well. I will share that. I think Trotz is the better coach, and I think it's interesting because the Caps as an organization didn't think that. They wanted Trotz out a while before. Now, to be fair, Trotz hasn't really proven he can get out of the second round except for that one time. So he's not like he's this been to the Cups many times kind of coach. He's been a good coach. He's a great coach that year.
Fantastic coach, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think he's a good coach. I don't think that, but he still has yet to prove that he can get out of the second round again, right? So there's still question marks about him as well. And I think that I've yet to see adjustments be made by our coach, and I think that's going to be the key. Can he make in-game adjustments, and what ultimately will that be? And I think that's part of it. But Anna, what are some of your thoughts?
Well, just to kind of piggyback what you said, I think that he kind of showed himself during the Boston game. I think he switched up those top two lines to kind of get that chemistry going. I think it was impressive, and I do think that we have to give Reardon an opportunity to shine, and I think that what better way than kind of going up against Trotz. They have a respect for each other. No one's taking that away. But at this point, you're not friends. You're kind of not enemies, but
I don't know about that. I heard some things about that locker room that Trotz and Reardon really didn't get along that well.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I heard there was a little tension between those two, even in the Cup season. That Trotz and Reardon didn't really get along that well. That's why. When the news came out that they were signed to go with Reardon, it was a shock to me, and I thought they would go with Trotz, but that's the side that they chose. That's something that I heard. I can't remember where I heard it from, but yeah, there was a little, I'm not gonna say ill will, but there was a little.
Sure.
I mean, Trotz knew what he was there for. He was there to replace him, and you're teaching him all of your skills and all the stuff you've learned over the whole 19, 20 years of coaching. So I can understand a little apprehension, but yeah, from what I heard, it was a little, friction between those two.
Interesting.
But the rumor that, at least I think, might be true, is that Trotz obviously had an option that went into effect when he won the Cup, so he got a 2-year extension. He wanted more money, which I understand. He's also an older coach, and again, he only had done it that 1 year. So the team was like, you can take the extension that we agreed upon mutually before, you're the one who came up with those numbers, or we're going to go with your heir apparent who's right here. And I think that Trotz, if we had signed an extension, was going to get rid of Reardon. Because I don't think, in hockey, coaches don't last that long. It's actually the shortest tenure in most, I think, all the major sports.
Yeah.
Like most hockey coaches last an average, I believe, of 2.5 years. And it's very, very short. And so why would Trotz want Reardon there to take it from him at any given moment whenever it downturns in the future, right? So
right.
I think he would have wanted him gone if he was getting an extension.
Quick scoring update. The Nats game. The Nats are pulling on the Mets. They're up 10-0 now. I believe it's the top of the 7th. They just got another double.
You're ahead of me. It's only 9-0 where I'm watching.
Right. Well, it's good. It's good. It's the punching bag of New York. We all like them.
Brace yourself. You're about to see another double real quick. So yeah, they're actually looking good tonight. I mean, it is the Mets, but they did lose one to the Mets last week. And but they up 10-0 with one out, top of the 5th. That is, I thought it was 7th, a little bit earlier in the game, and I think they just walked the bases loaded to try to get a forced double play to try to end this inning, but that doesn't. No, it looked like Robles got hit and he's going to first base. Now the bases are loaded, one out, top of the 5th. The Nats looking to add some more offense to their numbers because their offense has been kind of pitiful lately.
For sure. All right, well, let's get into some of these other series. I think we've talked about the Islanders enough for my liking. So I want to talk about that Toronto Columbus series just for a second. What a crazy series. It's the only one that went 5. And it's the only time in NHL history that a team has blown a 3-goal lead followed by the next game to come back from a 3-goal deficit and win it. So they lost the first one when they were up 3 goals, and then they won game 4 when they were down 3 goals. That's never happened in back-to-back games, no less back-to-back nights, which is what it was kind of crazy. And so that was kind of nuts. And then I thought it was going to be a really close and exciting Game 5, and it was the biggest dud. Columbus just sort of stifled them. And, I mean, that's kind of their game plan. I mean, you know this better than anyone, Brian. That's kind of his style, is to sort of that stifling defense, grind it out. And
good old Torts.
Get that opportunistic goal and sit on it. That one goal was sat on for a long time until the second goal came, which that was a bad goal to give up because between his legs, and I think he had to have that one. And then they got an empty netter to make it 3-0. But poor Steve Dangle. I watched that today, and I was just like, what a poor guy. Like, that Toronto team, every year they look like they're going to make it, and every year they fall apart right at the crucial time.
Toronto is the capitals of the early 2000s, the early 2000s and 2010s, man. That's what they are. They got all the talent, but they just can't put it together. We were in that cycle for a long time.
We got to a lot of Game 7s and lose. I remember it very, very well. So it's disappointing. I was rooting for Toronto just because I wanted them to kind of, I guess it wouldn't even have broken the curse because they still have to get out of the first regular round even if they had made it. But it just that team is too good to fall like that. I just couldn't. It's just kind of crazy, and you knew it wasn't going to be their night when John Tavares missed that open net. It was just a disappointing game to have a really great series. I just thought, hey, all the other series only went 3-1. This was the really great series, and then it kind of filtered out, at the end. But I want to get Brian, your quick thoughts on it.
Yeah, it was a great series until the last game. Toronto really played well, I thought. Columbus as well. It was a really good matchup. I'm still a Tortorella fan, like I've said, so I wanted to see Columbus win. But it's kind of crazy that Toronto has gone this long without any postseason success. I actually saw somewhere that if they don't win the Stanley Cup next year, that'll tie the Rangers record for longest Stanley Cup drought with 54 years. So it's awful. It's hard to believe they've gone that long. Their original 6 team, they've been in the league since the 20s. It's crazy, but that they haven't had any postseason success, and all the players they have as well. But shout out to Columbus, a great win for them. And I think, Columbus, has proven that they can be a successful team in the postseason based off what they did last year against Tampa Bay and this as well. So good for them. It was a good win for Columbus.
Yeah. Anna, what are some of your thoughts on it?
Yeah, the same. There was a side of me that was really kind of hoping last night Toronto was going to pull through and we would be able to see, as much as Torts drives me crazy, I appreciate his passion on the bench, but I don't know what happened. It's just, it's like they look so great coming back the last, 3.5 minutes, the prior game, and then they just didn't quite have it. So you have to hand it to the other team and say, okay, it was a great series, but maybe next year at Toronto. Yeah. Unfortunately.
Carol, your quick thoughts on it, and then I've got some breaking news I want to talk about as well.
It was a very interesting series. You were keeping me. I had the game on where it wasn't really paying close attention, but it's interesting that young team. We always talk about youth and inexperience in Columbus with Tortorella, and that constant defensive pressure that they have is going to wear you down if you're not prepared for it. And unfortunately, Toronto just can't get over that hump. What's the breaking news you got, Robbie?
Yeah, well, it's actually about Brian Brennan's team.
Yeah.
And, so
I was hoping we'd get to this.
Yes. It's probably the highlight of the week, right? So
definitely.
So last night, Anna and I were talking, and Gil, and we were saying if Pittsburgh won the lottery, that we knew the fix was in. So we kept on saying it over and over again. If you do this, it's rigged. Listen to us now, NHL. You can't do it, or you're proving us right. And so we wanted to put that into the air. So I even said, verbatim, and Anna could say this, I would even be okay if the Rangers get it as long as it's not Pittsburgh. I was like,
that's what I like to hear.
So I spoke it into existence. I was hoping that it was going to be Edmonton or maybe Toronto, just because of how things have been going for those two teams. I can't believe both bubble host cities are out, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Clearly not a home ice advantage at all. And but congratulations, you guys are probably getting a generational talent at the top of this draft, and Alexis
Lafreniere, I think it is.
Yeah, Lafreniere.
Lafreniere. Okay.
Yeah, I think. I don't know. It's French.
I'll learn it. I'll learn it.
You'll learn it well. You'll tell me.
At some point. Yeah.
But congratulations. I just want to put that out there. I did say last night that we would announce who it was, and I'm just so thankful it's not Pittsburgh. So now Pittsburgh got bumped out of that first round, and they got nothing for it. So that's very good. So, because I was like, everyone was convinced on Caps forums that they were going to get this draft pick, and we were all going to be salty that they got out early.
Of course they were. They always had a conspiracy theory ready, just in case. That's what I love about fans. They're already ready for it.
With that team,
But sometimes if you put it out so much that it's out there, it wouldn't have been it wouldn't have been right. So maybe we pushed it back the right way. So it's good. I'll take some credit for giving you the Rangers.
I just want to say, I wouldn't change a thing, honestly. I know the Rangers got swept by Carolina, and it sucks. But if it meant we were going to get the number 1 pick, I'm all for it. I'm really happy the Rangers have gotten the number 1 pick. This is only the second time in franchise history they've ever had it. The last time was in 1965. So this is a big deal. People are saying this is a generational type talent. So what's not to love? I'm very excited about this.
Yeah, I'm sad that it'll be in the division, but I'm happy for you.
Thank you. So, appreciate that.
But it's just really interesting to see. I hope that it was rigged in your favor because you guys were the only ones swept. So I feel like if anyone deserves it, just statistically, that you were the last of those teams. So
I can't argue with that. You can't argue with any of that.
You're not going to argue that. You got the number 1 pick going in next year. Of course you're not going to argue that, bro. This is the most docile I've seen you in a while when it comes to your Rangers. You're in that number 1 zone right there.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. But, all right, so we've talked about most of the series. We've talked about how things shaped out. I thought that Tampa Bay was very good in that round robin, but they just weren't as good as Pittsburgh. I thought Boston looked really terrible. They fell from number 1 to number 4. I thought it was interesting that some of the lower seeded teams in Vegas and in Philly kind of were definitely the big winners of this to move up to first. Although it's hard to know if seeding means anything at this point, just because of how it's set up. But as I mentioned a little bit earlier, the Caps are playing the only division rival of the whole entire bunch. That's crazy. There's 8 matchups and only 1 game is against a division rival. So that means we know our opponent better than anybody else does. But I think we've gone through all of, I'm trying to think of, is there any other Eastern Conference matchup that we need to go through? Hold on, I'm just pulling it up real quickly. We got the...
we didn't really talk about the Boston-Carolina series. That's going to be interesting to me with Boston not having their top player and Carolina playing like they're playing. This might be a sweep for Carolina, the way Boston looked and the way Carolina's looked. This might be real trouble for Boston.
Who's out for Boston?
No, he's back. We talked about this last week.
Yeah, Pasternak was back, but I don't think he's going to be in sync, and it's going to take them a little while. And if Carolina get on them early, I don't see him coming out that hole.
Yeah, it'd be really curious if a sweep is helpful for them or not. They've had a long time off between their games, and so I don't know if that's good or bad in this sort of scenario. So it could bite them. I thought Boston played a much tougher, and much closer game. So it'll be interesting to see if that has an effect as well. I think that's all of the matchups. We talked about the Islanders, Florida, Toronto, Columbus, Carolina, Rangers, Pittsburgh, Montreal. We didn't really talk about it other than the fact that I'm happy about Montreal, but I was really surprised that Sidney Crosby lost on his birthday. I was like, there's no way he loses on his birthday. They'll definitely extend this series.
That's called karma.
Yeah.
And it's called awesomeness. Yeah, I'll take August 7th as a fantastic day.
Yeah, so I guess a lot of people realize this. I never realized why he was 87. So he's born on 8/7/87, which makes sense. That's why he's that number. But now I will always remember it as the day that Sidney Crosby couldn't even make the first round of the playoffs. So I appreciate that greatly. Carol, do you have any thoughts on the demise of our rivals?
It's interesting because I actually saw an article that he said that Crosby, that is, said that their window, might be closing, and we've seen this team through, I don't know what, the last 20, 25, almost 30 years, constantly making the playoffs, constantly doing good things and having top players and being a top team in the league. And as you say, for them not to make it to the first round of the playoffs is something might be, closing of the door with some of the decisions that they've made to keep Malkin happy and not keep certain players around. Might come back to finally bite them in the butt. Maybe the Capitals can maybe catch up in the cup race and maybe add a couple of more cups to their trophy case.
Yeah, I really think of it almost like March Madness. It's just crazy that two 12 seeds took out two 5 seeds. I mean, it's just something I would have never expected. I'm curious how many people got the bracket are at 100%, so far, because it would definitely be a tough thing to try to call. On the West, I'll just go through the matchups really quickly, just to how the series rounded out. Vancouver, the 5, beat the 10 seed Minnesota Wild 3-1. There were some interesting matchups there. Calgary beat Winnipeg. I'm sorry, Anna. They beat them 3-1 in their series. I thought that it was close for a time, but Calgary did seem like the better team.
Well,
there.
you had their two top players out. So you had Line was out, and then Tkachuk, who's such a D-bad player, take out Sheffield in the first. It was a dirty hit, in my opinion, and so unfortunately, the Jets weren't playing with 100%. So it is what it is.
Yeah, especially in a short series, injuries.
Right, and that's not a Donald Trump quote.
Yeah, and then Arizona beat Nashville. That was kind of a surprising one.
That was awesome.
And yeah, I think that was really cool. And then the real surprising was Chicago beating Edmonton. I mean, that's way crazier to me than anything that I've seen so far. It's just I can't believe
that was a hell of a series.
Carol? What were some of your thoughts on that one?
It was I believe that was a back and forth game. It was a 4 where Edmonton was up 2 and cruising. And next thing you know, Chicago put up 3 back to back in like a 5-minute span. And it was just exploiting some of the defensive deficiencies in Edmonton's game. They're greatly they're like another Capitals squad trying to find their way. Great offensively, great talent, great on the power play, but when it comes to crunch time and when it comes to time to lock down the defense, they just don't have it. And that's what, Adam and Trotz came here and instilled that into this team. And until they get a coach that can instill that defensive value and they actually buy into it, then you're not going to have success. And we saw what happens when you buy into it. How we saw the Capitals on their run, how their defense was stifling. Like we talked about, getting one shot and clearing the zone, blocking shots, everybody sacrificing. And they just don't have it there in Edmonton yet. But they have a great offensive core. They just got to get that defense locked down. Chicago, being a veteran team that they are, trying to, get back to the mountaintop that they, were the last team to win 2 out of 3, I believe. And, they're just a quality squad that just stays good, kind of like Pittsburgh. The players get old, they bring in new talent, but they continue to stay on top of the league and always in talks for being a Stanley Cup champion. So it was a very entertaining matchup between those two teams, if anybody else got a chance to check it out.
Yeah. I just wanted to quickly just talk about the upcoming matchups, just to sort of set the stage. So that Chicago team will play Vegas, who looked really, really good, unfortunately. And then...
Why don't you like Vegas? You beat them.
Exactly. Like, yeah.
She really hates Ryan Reeves. That's what it is.
Dirty hit with Tommy, and there's just something about
I mean,
they're just a Vegas team. I feel like do they have a talent? Of course they do, and they have a skill. Yes, but they're cocky as, and I just don't like how they play. I feel like, and especially Ryan Reeves has some ridiculous statistic for like 316 hits in the last season when, we stopped playing in March, and like he's gloating like he has this number one thing. And do we have that with Tom Wilson from a couple of years ago? Yes, but then Tom matured from that and is in to play the game as a hockey player. And I feel like Reeves is just out there. He's just dirty, and I just want to throat punch. So when it comes to Vegas, I really, I wish I could say like, Pat Crowley and other Fleury and Nate Schmidt.
Oh yeah, I forgot about Fleury.
I wish I could say that there's like all this talent that I respect, but I kind of feel like they're just a team that I don't have the respect for because of how they play. I don't feel like they're in it for all the right reasons.
Fleury is the reason why they have that cockiness, man. Fleury is I never liked him when he was with Pittsburgh because he'd always beat the Capitals, but Fleury is that dude, man. I was watching the NHL channel today. He had one of the top plays in the qualifying round where he was, in the middle of the crease trying to find the puck. The puck comes in on the right wing, shot high. He dives at the last second to keep the game a 1-goal game. He's a game changer when he's locked in.
Oh,
you just like you're going up against a brick wall. So that's how I feel like they have some of that cockiness and arrogance because they know they got that brick wall behind them.
Oh yeah, and he's one that I can't take away his skill and talent 100%. But when I have to see like a Marcel, showing up in a Lamborghini on the red carpet before a game, it's all that kind of stuff that drives me crazy. But when it comes down to it, the fact that they're going up against the Blackhawks, I like the talent of the Kane, Taves, Nylander, Crawford. I really would. They seem more classic to me. They seem more like true hockey players that are in it for all the right reasons. And I still haven't seen Vegas as a team that is truly hockey and not just in it for, the showboating kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. No, I definitely.
That makes sense.
Chicago gonna give him some go. Chicago is a quality team that's got a good system and know what they're doing. Brian, so what do you think about this Vegas Chicago matchup?
I mean, I don't know too much about the West, but Vegas obviously really impressed in these games. I mean, and Chicago, I was surprised, but their veteran leadership with Taves and Kane obviously led them to this win. So I think this will be an interesting matchup, but I think I'll still probably end up going with Vegas in 6.
Brian. Even after I was pulling for the
just
ring.
Have to. No, sorry, sorry.
I get it. No worries.
So I'm just going to quickly read over the other matchups real fast.
Yeah.
It's Dallas and Calgary, the 3-6 matchup. Colorado, Arizona, the 2-7 matchup. And St. Louis, Vancouver, the 4-5 matchup. Again, no one's playing a division rival, so I think that's interesting, except for Colorado is playing Arizona. And I mentioned that because they may become soon rivals. And here's why I think that. Because if people don't know this, Arizona is going to switch divisions when the new Seattle Kraken come to play. And the Kraken will go into the Pacific. And then Arizona will become in the they'll move more central since that's where they are. And so that'll be interesting to see if this Colorado-Arizona matchup becomes good. I'm pulling for Colorado just because I like some of our old goalies and players on that team.
I already knew you that damn Andre Burakovsky fan. You.
I know. Got to get him in there anyway. I didn't even have to mention his name, and he came up. Right?
But hold on. But Carol, would you rather pull for Berkey and Grubauer or Phil Kessel?
Did you guys?
That's a tough one.
Yeah, I can't even say that K. I can't even say that K word. So I gotta go with Andre. I gotta go with Andre and Grubauer.
There you go. And then did you see the meme where he was like, "Hey, Sid and Gino, now that you're out of the bubble, can you get me some hot dogs?" That was a great meme.
He's never gonna let that down. But you know what? With the Avalanche, you cannot go wrong with Nathan McKinnon. Mm-hmm. I mean, my God, that is a talent on ice right there, and I enjoy it. I don't know. There's something about the Colorado team that I like. I like is it Kadri?
Mm-hmm. That's Kadri.
And Grubauer. There's something about that team that I think there's a ton of talent. There's a ton of potential. yeah, with the Coyotes, tussle.
Right. It's one of those things. I was going back. I was thinking things we didn't talk about at the time, but I was so surprised that Columbus, who lost so many great players, was able to get back to where they were. I thought they're a young core team that I just was sort of surprised by. Just going back to that for a second, I just think that matchup with Tampa Bay is going to be really interesting. Tampa Bay obviously has a lot of injuries right now. They're dealing with a lot of stuff, but
is Stamkos playing?
He's still injured and stuff like that. So we got Tim here. I guess we're gonna switch gears.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's time.
It's time. Any final thoughts, Anna, before we let you go?
Yeah, I'm just looking forward to it. I think that these are fantastic matchups across the board, and I think my family is probably going to disown me in the next week or so because of the fact that I'm like, don't talk to me. Like, hockey's on, go, microwave your dinner, and we'll be good. But no, I think it'll be awesome, and I look forward to Wednesday at 3.
3 o'clock. Yeah, so real quickly, just I'll put the schedule out there. I did a little Facebook Live last night about it. Also, make sure that you check out that Orlov hit if you haven't. It's got over 3,000 views. People in Caps World seem to really like it. Also, check out the podcast we did with Anna last night on our show page. It's also on my YouTube channel. If you go to SportsOTHP.com, or you can click the audio, and they'll be releasing the audio, I believe, tomorrow on the Power Play Point podcast button. So check out that as well. And I really enjoyed coming on that show and mixing it up with you guys. And I look forward to breaking down the games. So it's Wednesday. You have to have 2 day games and 2 night games, because remember, every day there's 2 games at each arena. So we get the day game at the 3 o'clock game on Wednesday. We get the night game on Friday. That's an 8 o'clock game.
Mm-hmm.
I believe the following one is Sunday, because we're going every other. So Sunday, that one will be a noon game. Mm-hmm. And then it goes back to 8 o'clock on Tuesday. So we won't have a hockey game to compete with our podcast next week. So we'll be able to recap those first 3 games and preview the next week for the Capitals, and also maybe give people an update on how the schedule is going for the other squads as well. But Anna, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, guys. Have a great rest of your show. Hopefully not too much controversy with the Washington football team.
Yeah.
Hopefully not.
All right, take care, guys.
All right, Anna, have a good night.
Sounds good. All right. Carol, any thoughts before we switch gears and I bring in the Wizards Roundtable?
Just talking about since we just talking about hockey and transitioning into basketball, I saw that both leagues, with the precautions they've taken, I think they said over 7,700 tests and no positive tests for COVID with both leagues since they've been in the bubble. So got to take your hat off to the NBA and the NHL for being real about player safety and taking care of these players is out here basically risking their life to play a game to keep us entertained.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that was a fun little hockey segment, and we're going to move on here. We're going to bring in the team, the squad, the roundtable. This will probably be our last Wizards roundtable of the year. We're going to start off by bringing in Tim Clark, who's been a part of the team for all 5 seasons. How are you doing today, Tim?
Pretty good. Better than Scott Brooks right now. Not losing as much in life as he is.
That's very true. That's very true. And DC's People Champ, how are you doing? I like that you're wearing Capitals gear today.
Listen, I had to wear something of a team from DC that's actually winning. And I think I got more wins when it comes to my podcast than the Wizards got in the bubble. Jesus Christ.
And Arun, our stats guy, how are you doing tonight?
Not bad. Enjoying the Nats finally offense showing up to play with 12 runs so far. It's only the 6th inning, but overall I'm doing well.
Cool. So let me share the screen real quick. And we also have Brian Brennan, if people are just tuning in right now. He'll give more of the general NBA. And hold on, let me see. Where are we? Safari. There we go. So now we should have the weekly schedule up, and we can break down each one of the games. I'm going to pick a game. I'm going to ask around the table to see who's seen it. We're going to start off with the 76ers versus the Washington Wizards. I'm not going to break down the quarter-by-quarter scoring, but we'll just say that the 76ers were able to come on strong at the very end and win 107-98, although there were some injuries. I'm going to start off with Arun. What are some of your thoughts on the 76ers and the Wizards?
Yeah, the Wizards were competitive, surprisingly, for most of this game. They were actually winning in the third quarter when Ben Simmons left with an injury. The Wizards were playing really good defense, but it just wasn't enough. The offense was not really that good. Rui only had 8 points. And Embiid, of course, is great. He had 29 and 12 rebounds, and Tobias Harris had 18. And Al Horford, who the Wizards missed out and got Jan Mahimi instead, he was plus 18 on the floor. So the Wizards lost, which was as expected.
Yeah. Tim, did you check out any of this game?
I saw a little bit of the second half because I saw the score was close, and then it was the classic case of you turn on the game and it just goes completely south. So I only saw a little bit of the third quarter. But, I mean, Arun pretty much said it correctly. Like, the Wizards finally put together a pretty good defensive game, especially by NBA standards. But, you know, the one game that they lock it down, more or less, they couldn't score. So, another disappointing game. And I don't know if this is the one that eliminated them, but it was right around this time.
Yeah. I didn't realize people were actually asking us questions in the last segment, so I apologize if we didn't get to some of those questions. But I'll go back and I'll respond to them in the chat. We're going to DC People's Champ. Did you get a chance to see this game?
This was the only game I actually watched out of the three because the other two, I just couldn't bear watching them, and because of what I saw in this game, it's saddening. That's all I can say about it. It's saddening that maybe they listened to this podcast a couple weeks ago when I said, don't win, don't go to the playoffs. Maybe they listened. I mean, do I have that much influence? Somebody tell me. It was just, Ben Simmons went out of the game. All you had to do was lock down Joel Embiid, you could win the game. You couldn't do it. And now, no playoffs, period. That's all I got there. It was too much of an up and down game with too many downs and not enough up. That's all.
Yeah. All right. I mean, I didn't honestly watch this game. I've had trouble watching a lot of these Wizards games, mostly because I was watching so much hockey. So I have to admit that I was better in the first hour segment than I will be in tonight's show. But it was interesting that they were winning, and I am happy that they were competitive and they're getting some practice. And, Rui didn't have a double-double in this game, but he has in most of his games. And Thomas Bryant has had a double-double in I think almost every game, and he's been playing really well. And a lot of the young guys and some people are getting an opportunity, and we can sort of see who we want to keep for the future. And it's better than sitting at home for the summer, so I think I'm happy that they went, and hopefully their draft pick will. I am curious if they lose all the games and they end up having a worse record than the teams that didn't make the bubble. Do they get a better draft pick? I don't know how that works.
No, they don't.
It's a lottery, so.
Okay, but they don't get more balls by doing that or anything? No. Okay.
No.
Well,
I thought maybe that would be the case, that they would have a better percentage of getting a top pick if they had a worse record. That's not what it is?
No, it's already locked in. If they're locked into the spot they're already in. They'd only end up with the worst pick if they made the playoffs.
Oh, okay, all right.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah, so I think we're as good as we could be. So, all right, so that game I think we can do in the books. The next one was on Friday. It was against the Pelicans. It was a somewhat competitive game until the third quarter, where the New Orleans Pelicans put up 37 points on the Wizards, and they only scored 25. And from there, it was pretty much even scoring, I guess. I know that a lot of you guys didn't get to check this game out. Arun, were you able to see any parts of it?
Bits and pieces. Rui had a pretty good game. He had 23 points, which was the most he's had since like early December. Most of the starters played well outside of Bonga, but the Pelicans had way more talent even with Zion out. Drew Holiday was the best player on the floor, and the bench of the Pelicans really outplayed the Wizards. In the third quarter, where the Wizards typically collapsed, they were really dominated. And Frank Jackson on the bench, he was plus 30 when he was on the floor. Alonzo Ball was pretty bad, which was pretty funny. He only had 2 points. But otherwise, it was a loss. The Wizards actually could have won this game, but who really cares, like, at this point?
Yeah. All right, let's go. Well, did anyone else have any comments? I'll open the floor if anyone wants to say anything on this one.
Robbie, like I told you earlier when we chatted, I told you I really like Rui Hachimura. I really do. This kid is really coming into his own, and I believe this is only his first year, and he's doing very well in his first year in the league. Even with the stoppage, he's come into the bubble. He's done well. He's had some off games, but for the most part, he's been very consistent. And I like the fact that he was able to score 23 here on this night in this game, as well as Thomas Bryant, 22. The front court is looking extremely strong going into next season. And once you get that dynamic backcourt back, this team could be a playoff caliber team once you get all the pieces back. But I really like Rui Hachimura a lot.
Yeah, I do like that Thomas Bryant and Rui get this extra time. If it's just the season had ended and they didn't get anything, like hopefully they are able to sort of put that forward. And Admiral Schofield got 8 minutes. Just people are getting some time, and I think it's slightly more competitive than the summer league would usually be because the other teams need it, and so you're playing against a team that needs the win. So that's good. All right, let's jump into the last game. Against the Oklahoma City Thunder. They just sort of jumped out at the end of the first quarter. They had a pretty big lead. They seem to have led throughout the whole game. Arun, do you have any interesting stats about this one?
Just Bonga probably had his best game of the bubble with 14 points and 8 rebounds. And Jerome Robinson had 19, but other than that, it was like pretty much Baisley for the Thunder dominated, and it wasn't. And Shea Gilgeous-Alexander was great for them, and this game wasn't even that close. Like, I believe only third quarter was when the Wizards outscored the Thunder. It was only by a point, and yeah, it wasn't a really close game at all.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll let anybody else open the floor. Does anyone else want to talk about this game at all? I didn't think so. All right, so tomorrow they play the Bucks in a meaningless game against a really, really good team, followed by playing the Celtics, another really good team. So that is going to be 2 interesting matchups. I'm sure they're going to lose. So the time has finally been set for the Celtics game. It's a 12 o'clock game on Thursday, and tomorrow, Tuesday, if you're watching, you're not watching live. At 9 p.m., it's against the Bucks. I know that one's considered a home game. Not that really matters for anything in this. Anyone have any thoughts on either of those 2 matchups?
I mean, it depends on if Giannis plays or not in that Bucks game. I mean, they've pretty much clinched everything at this point. Same with the Celtics. There could just be bench players going up against the Wizards, and this could be an opportunity for maybe a good performance if all goes right. But they've pretty much clinched everything. So I would say the Wizards, at least have a chance to maybe steal one of these games, but not likely.
Yeah, for sure.
They need pride. They need to win one for pride. Come on, guys. One. For your pride, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how much they push for this. Tim, what are some of your thoughts?
Well, the Bucks rested a lot of people tonight and looked pretty bad against Toronto's second string too. But the sad part about the Wizards is they don't really show a lot of improvement and discipline in these games. Like, they're very young, but the coaching staff, all they do all day is play basketball and practice. So you think they would look better on defense and in their offensive sets, but they just look pretty sloppy, and it's kind of disappointing for the coaching really to not like clean up some of that stuff.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, I'm gonna, since we got a little bit of time, we went through those games quickly, which is what I was hoping for, since there's not a whole lot of positive to pull away from it. I'm gonna give each one of you guys an opportunity to talk about maybe a basketball game that you guys did enjoy, or any of the other teams or other NBA stuff that you find interesting or exciting. I'm gonna start with Brian Brennan, then I'll go around the round table. Oh, Brian, you're muted.
My bad. Sorry about that. I mean, I guess, the game that really stood out to me this past weekend was the Nuggets and Jazz game that went to double overtime. It was a really great game. Jokic played great for the Nuggets, and Murray played really well as well. Donovan Mitchell nearly put the team on his back, but the Nuggets ended up getting the win. I really loved that game. It was one of the best games I've seen in the bubble so far. Other stuff I'm looking forward to or looking at these last couple of days is the race for the 8th seed. It's guaranteed that there will be a play-in game. It all depends on who it's going to be. Will it be Portland, Memphis, San Antonio, or Phoenix? It'll be either of those. It'll be 2 of those 4 teams. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. That's been one of the exciting parts of the bubble for sure.
For sure, yeah. It's been an exciting bubble for a lot of other teams. Arun, what are some of your favorite games or things that you're looking out for?
I think the Trailblazers have been, and the Clippers game was interesting just because the aftermath of that game where Lillard missed the final 2 free throws of the game, where the Clippers were, I think, intentionally trying to lose by playing their bench players. And then the trash talking that ensued afterwards, where Beverly said Dame time on the bench, and then Lillard and Paul George went after it on social media, and even Damian Lillard's sister called out Paul George for sleeping with some stripper, and that's pretty crazy. And then Lillard, of course, followed it up with a 50-point game against the 76ers, which is pretty incredible. I think it's pretty interesting just that all this trash talking is happening, and they're all pretty much all there right in the bubble. So I thought that was an interesting game.
Yeah. All right, Tim, what are some of your other favorite games and parts of the bubble so far?
I wanted to highlight another OT game, Dallas against Milwaukee on Saturday night. It was a big back and forth game. It would have been another kind of heartbreaking OT loss if Dallas had blown that, but they managed to pull it out. And Luka's playing insane this whole bubble tournament. He's had 3 or 4 triple doubles already, and there's a lot of talk that he might be an MVP candidate for next year. So I think that's really exciting. And then also the surprise of the bubble is definitely the Suns. I mean, imagine if they go undefeated, and I don't see them beating the Lakers, for example, but imagine if they ran the table and gave the Lakers kind of a scare in the first round.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm definitely hoping for this play-in game, and
there will be a play-in. There's going to be a play-in. It's clinched, but they just don't know what the two teams are going to be.
Yeah, but I'm excited that it exists. So I think that'll be an interesting matchup.
It may be 2 games. Could be 2. That's what we all want.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of a weird. I mentioned this before. It's double elimination. So if the 8th seed wins either game, it's over. But if the 9th seed has to win twice. So it's not really a best of 3. I've never seen that before in basketball or hockey. I've seen it in video game competitions, but I've never seen it done that way. And so I wonder if they pulled it from there. So I just never seen it before in professional sports. So
maybe it'll stick around next year if people love it. But
yeah,
we'll see.
I'd be okay if the 8-9 got to have that sort of, just in general, just because they do it in baseball, right? The wild card, the last.
Yeah, that's what the wild card is. I mean, it's not like the lower seed has to win 2 games in a row, but It's a plan.
I kind of like that though better than winning the two. Maybe even baseball should do that because I feel like in any one game, any team could win one game. But if you're going to force the bottom seed to have to win twice, then at least maybe each team gets one home game. And so in that scenario as well. So it would make the baseball playoffs a little bit longer, but I'd be okay with waiting 2 extra days and giving the teams that have earned it a little extra rest. And I don't know, it could be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I like spicing it up this year. It's like a year of experimentation in all the sports.
Yeah, it's cool. At least we have something to talk about. For 4 months, this podcast didn't even exist. So, I'm happy that I could be back and we could discuss some of that. So, DC People's Champ, what are some of your other favorite basketball games or moments in the bubble?
Well, there were 2 things that stuck out to me. One, that insane no-look pass that Luka had in one of the games recently. That pass was absolutely insane. It almost reminded me of the old school and one games that used to happen back in the late 90s, early 2000s up in New York. That kind of pass right there, and the fact that he made it so pinpoint to the cutter coming through the lane, and he finished it just the way you should pass like that. That was awesome. And the second thing is what CP3 actually mentioned before we started this segment. The fact that they have done over 7,000 tests between the NHL and the NBA. They've done so many tests with the NBA in the bubble, and not a single positive test should let other leagues know, hey, maybe in this new age, at least until we get this under control, maybe we need to go into a bubble to keep from spreading this and having this happen. So those are 2 things that stood out to me: is the no positive tests as being in the bubble, 1, and 2. Luka Doncic is like insane. He's like the foreign new version of white chocolate to me.
Interesting. Yeah, well, there's definitely some cool storylines for us to break down, as we continue to talk about the NBA playoffs. And so hopefully I'll be able to bring a bunch of you guys back on, maybe as the NBA goes on, depending on how time allows us for. But I've enjoyed, I know we haven't had a lot of weeks of it, but I enjoy this new format and being able to see all of you guys and be able to have all of you on and discussing stuff. And we'll probably take a break from it for a couple of weeks maybe, but definitely when the NBA playoffs, maybe after the first round or maybe a little bit further into it, there's more to talk about there. I definitely would like to bring you guys back on to talk a little bit, even if it's not Wizards basketball, but I'm sure it'll be interesting to have some playoff stuff. But I'm going to let each one of you guys kind of give your final thoughts, and then I'm going to ask Arun real quickly. Are you going to stay on for baseball talk tonight?
Yeah, I will.
Awesome. Sounds good. So I'll let Arun and Brian say their goodbyes a little later. We're going to start off with Tim. Tim, any final thoughts before we let you go tonight?
No, I'm just wishing luck to the Capitals. I think all the Capitals fans could use some good news. So I really don't want to hear any stories about how we lost to Barry Trotz. That would be a nightmare. So I hope Caps will move on. I'm sure it won't be easy because it never is for them. But go Caps.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. And so I've got all the Caps gear sitting right up there above me. District of Champions Caps gear. Definitely people can check it out. I'm even so diehard I even got Caps PJs on. So, but I like the DC People's Champs Caps stuff. Even Brian's wearing red, which is surprising. So
it's not for the Caps.
I know. But I can pretend.
Be a Nats shirt like that.
It's not for any DC teams. It is just a red shirt.
No, but anyway, Tim, we appreciate you joining us as always.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
To talking maybe a little more NBA playoffs along the line.
Sure. Have a good night.
All right, you too. All right, DC People's Champ, I'll let you go next. Do you have any wrestling news on this week's show?
Well, first, big rest in peace to the Ugandan giant Kamala, who unfortunately passed away yesterday at the age of 70 to COVID-19. He had underlying health problems such as diabetes, hypertension, and kidney failure, where he was on dialysis. They think he caught him in one of his dialysis visits. So rest in peace to him. Legend in wrestling, legend. And also, keep an eye on the No Spots podcast this week. I actually did a recording earlier today with an up and coming professional wrestler named K.A. Robinson, who's a good friend of mine. We got to chat for about 40 plus minutes, talking about wrestling, gaming, cosplaying, maybe starting a podcast, things like that. That'll be up this Saturday morning at 10 a.m. And I actually have another recording of another professional wrestler I'm going to talk to on Wednesday, but I'm going to keep the name of that one a little hush hush because that'll come out next week. And we're going to be talking about some New Japan stuff and, of course, the week that was in wrestling this coming weekend for the full No Spots podcast. So we got a lot going on No Spots, so just stay tuned.
Awesome. Well, if anyone is missing the wrestling fix, we don't usually talk wrestling on this podcast. Definitely check out No Spots Podcast, another member of the beloved True Radio Network, and always family here. And we really appreciate your time, champ, and we'll definitely talk to you soon.
Definitely. I'll be back.
All righty. All right. With that, I think I will cede control back to Carol, and we can maybe get into a little earlier baseball talks. That way we might be able to finish the podcast. Maybe it won't be 2 full hours. Is Carol there? I don't even know.
Gotta give me a quick.
Oh, there he is. He pops up out of nowhere.
Baby, I was in here taking care of some other stuff behind the scenes, and he's like, "Carol, I'm gonna get control." Like, oh, at least give me a heads up, baby.
Shit. Well, I thought you were listening.
I was in the middle of doing some behind the scenes. You didn't hear what I said. I was doing some behind the scenes things, Robbie.
Behind the scenes.
Yeah,
well,
there's
all
a
right.
lot of things that go on behind the snes that folks don't know about.
Got it. Okay, I think I got where you're going.
Yeah.
So, well, now we're blowing up Carol's spot, but now we can talk baseball. So, that's always good. And let's see.
Let me get these scores up here on my screen.
Yep. What's the current score in the Nats game? We can just start
14-2.
Oh, okay. It got closer.
Yeah, Mets got a safety. It's 14-2.
Yeah, he just Corbin just gave up 2 runs in this inning. He probably gonna be his last inning of work. He was cruising pretty good. Walked the guy, then an unfortunate infield hit that he tried to get the man at second to set up a double play. Unfortunately, went into center field, which accounted for their first run, and they just got a single to count for their second run. There's 2 outs in the bottom of the 6th. Nats up comfortably 14-2 in this game. Patrick Corbin looking pretty good.
Cool. Well, I will fall back and let you guys rock and roll and talk a little bit of baseball. I'll still stay here, but I was so into the hockey this week that I don't know if I have a whole lot to add, but I'll let you break it down, Carol.
No problem. You're more than welcome to chime in. As we mentioned last week, the Nationals had some, I believe, the next 12 games against the Mets and the Orioles. And I made the joke that the Nats should go undefeated. The way they played last week, that's definitely not going to happen. They lost, I believe, 2 out of 3 to the Mets? Get my numbers up here. Yeah, they lost 2 to the Mets. Won against the Mets, lost the other to the Mets. And lost 2 out of 3 to the Orioles. One game was shortened due to rain. I'm not sure if when they have that schedule to make up. But, those games against the Orioles, boy, those were some ugly games. But not going to get too ahead of ourselves. We're going to go ahead and talk about the lone victory of the week, which was the first game against the Mets, which was a 5-3 victory. Patrick Corbin was on the mound. He's been, I'd say, the most steady starting pitcher to come out through this pandemic-shortened season. He's pitched very well. We talked about him tonight, 14-2 lead. Just gave up 2 runs in the bottom of the 6th. So he's definitely one of the pitchers that's come out there and did his job and then hasn't had any hiccups. He went 5 2/3, giving up 8 hits, 3 earned runs with 8 strikeouts and 1 walk. The losing pitcher of record was Steven Matz. That puts him at 0-2. He went 3 innings, giving up 7 hits, 5 earned runs with 3 strikeouts. Daniel Hudson earned the save. That's his second of the year. He went an inning, giving up no hits, no runs, 2 strikeouts, and a walk. Howie Kendrick started it off with a solo home run. Josh Harrison in his first game, first at bat, hit a solo home run, which Juan Soto was very excited about. He was just about getting cleared to play. He was on top of the dugout, getting in some celebration, dancing. Happy for Josh Harrison, his first at bat, and getting a home run, which was huge. Starlin Castro played pretty well. Um, this was a good game. I thought they would turn the corner with this game, and starting to get some consistency. Offense looked well. Didn't have any errors in the field, but yeah, the rest of the week was a different story. Arun, did you get a chance to check out any of that 5-3 victory against the Mets last week?
Yeah, I checked it out. Like, as you said, Howie Kendrick was great. He had 4 hits, but I'm just wondering if he can just like put it together every day. Like, given his age, he didn't really. He had a great game after a huge layoff, but then as an everyday player, I'm just wondering if he can do it at all times. And Keyboom, he also had a hit in RBI. He was batting 400 after this game, but I don't think he played the next couple of days after this one.
Yeah, Keyboom, I'm more worried about his fielding than his bat. He's been in second and at third, and he's had some issues, especially at third. He's supposed to be the replacement for Rendon. I've seen him more at second, where he looks a little bit more comfortable, but that doesn't solve the issue at third. Brian, what about you? Did you check out that game, the 5-2 victory?
Yeah, I did get to see this game. Corbin pitched great. It's kind of funny. This was actually the matchup for tonight's game, Corbin versus Matz, and it went a little bit better for Matz in this game, but this was a good win for the Nats, like you said. Harrison coming in and instantly hitting the home run, and Soto dancing on the dugout. That's all stuff you love to see. Harrison, I don't think actually, if I'm not mistaken, going into tonight's game, that was Harrison's only hit as a National so far. He might have changed that tonight, but yeah, this was a good win. Obviously, it set the tone for what should have been a better week for the Nationals, but wasn't. It was actually a pretty terrible week for the Nationals.
Agreed. Yeah, I made that joke. I'm starting to regret I made that joke last week about them going defeated against the Mets and the Orioles. Let's go ahead and get to the next game. Let me switch the graphic up real quick, which was an unfortunate 3-1 loss. Mad Max had to start, but he left after, I believe it was an inning or two, was an inning and a third, or maybe 2 full innings. I forgot what the exact they said it was. I should have wrote it down.
I think it's his back.
Yeah, I know they said like muscle tightness or something like that. I didn't know they got specific to the back, but yeah, they said,
right
the throwing velocity was off also. I think that's what they officially said during the game, is that his velocity wasn't right, and then it came out later, it was back tightness. So, I mean, with this, changed up so-called spring training and short season, especially for the pitchers, older pitchers that have their routines when they go into spring training, and then ramp it up during certain times, and have their own set schedule. Maybe this is what's happening with him, that he didn't get a chance to do his regular routine, and Max isn't a young guy, so I mean it's still early. Nats not too far behind. They're sitting in 5th right now, but we know what the Nats can do when they get hot and get going. But getting back to this game, as I mentioned, it was a 3-1 loss. Scherzer exited early. Winning pitcher was Rick Porcello, puts him at 1-1. He went 7 innings, giving up 5 hits, 1 earned run with 4 strikeouts and no walks. Eric Fetty, who came in for Scherzer, he pitched pretty well. He gave up 3 hits in 3 innings, 1 earned run with 1 strikeout and 3 walks, which isn't characteristic for him. He normally isn't a guy that walks a lot of guys. He just gives up hits at the wrong time. So he was, he did well coming in that position. As a starter, he hasn't really had any bullpen work. So, it is what it is. Next man up. And for the save was Seth Lugo. He went 2 innings, giving up no hits, no runs, and with 2 strikeouts. Juan Soto in his first game had a RBI double in the bottom of the first, and that was all the offense for the Nats that game. Arun, did you get a chance to check out this game where Porcello had the Nats struggling at the plate, and Juan Soto in his first game was able to at least get an RBI double?
Yeah, Porcello, he had like 7 1/3 scoreless innings, and he pretty much shut down the Nationals. He had his 150th win of his career. And Soto, yeah, he was the only Nats player to get a hit with a runner in scoring position. As you pointed out, he got an RBI in his debut. And Doolittle came in, and he's also struggled. Like, this was another game where he struggled. I think his velocity's gone down on his fastball. And, yeah, Doolittle with another, he gave up another run out of the bullpen.
Ryan, what did you? If you got a chance to check this game out, it was a head scratcher for me. They just, Porcello just had them guessing at the plate. They couldn't even get contact for real.
Yeah, I mean, first off, I hope Scherzer's okay. He's my favorite national, so I hope he's okay. I hope he's able to make his next start. This isn't a long-term thing. I don't know. I haven't heard too much detail on this, but I just want to. I think we're going to talk about Sean Doolittle a little bit later when we get to the Orioles series. Definitely. But you're right. Like he definitely struggled in this game, and Fedde did pitch well for the Nationals, but just a tough loss. Porcello really shut down the offense. The offense has really been struggling. Not tonight against the Mets, but in this series against the Mets, they struggle. They struggle against the Orioles too. They have the pitching to compete, but you just wonder if the offense is there. And, maybe getting Soto back into a good rhythm will help.
Oh, definitely. We talked about it in the first couple of weeks of the season, how not having Tony Two Bags and Soto in the lineup has definitely, changed the complexion of this team. Tony Two Bags is in Anaheim now. I think I saw something about he's having a little struggles out there in the American League West. I think he said he's hitting like 150 right now or something, but we know how Anthony Rendon is. He's going to get it up to a 300. It's a little transition from the National League, American League strike zone. So I think he's going to be all right. But yeah, Soto, he did in the playoffs and all season, 130 RBIs, 30 plus home runs. I mean, this kid is phenomenal. I'm going to go back to being on the record when Bryce decided to leave and everybody was in panic mode. And I said, and I quote, I have no problem with Bryce leaving because we got a Juan Soto. That man's 20 years old, about to be 21, and doing the things he's doing. This team is going to be fine with Juan Soto. And they got him on the cheap. And look like the Nats just got him.
For now.
Yeah, for now. Hey, we got to leave.
Someday they're going to have to pay him a lot of money.
We got 2 more years, baby. 2 more years, I believe. And the Nats just got a solo home run by Asdrubal Cabrera to make it 16-2.
2-run home run.
Oh, it was a 2-run home run. Okay, I didn't even know the man on. So, yeah, the Nats offense was looking pretty good instead of it did in the last game of the Mets series. Now let's go ahead and get into the Orioles series, which the first game of the series, the Nationals had no offense and no runs because they lost 11-0. And I think they're having flashbacks to last week in this game, wishing they put up all these runs against the Orioles last week. Because the Orioles pretty much teed off on Anibal Sanchez. We spoke about it last week. He's more of a control pitcher that when he's like in the middle of the season, when he has a little bit of fatigue, that's when his, pitches are the best. When he's full on rest and, strong and his pitches have a little bit more heat on him, he doesn't have as much control. And in this game, it showed as much. He lasted 5 1/3, giving up 10 hits with 5 earned runs, 4 strikeouts, and 3 walks. Winning pitcher was Tommy Malone, which I don't know if y'all folks recall, was a Nats pitcher, I think about 6 or 7 years ago. They traded him, I believe, to Oakland, and he's come back around and got a win on the Nats. He ended up going 6 innings, giving up 3 hits, no runs, but 3 strikeouts. Baltimore was on top of the Nationals from the break. They got out to a 3-0 lead by the bottom of the second. They had a 4-run 6th inning, a 3-run 7th inning, and it was pretty much nothing the Nats could do. They only mustered 4 hits that game, had 1 error, and Baltimore just stomped all over them at home. It's nothing. I always say it's nothing worse than getting shut out at home, and yeah, they stomped on them. Brian, as AL East, compadre with the Orioles, they're currently in second place, I believe, behind your Yankees. What did you take away from this game against the world champion Nationals that they couldn't even muster 1 run at home?
Yeah, this was frustrating for the Nationals. You never want to lose to your I guess you want to call it a rivalry, your Beltway rival like that, especially to get crushed. I mean, Asdrubal Cabrera was terrible, or not Asdrubal, sorry, Anibal Sanchez. I'm watching Asdrubal Cabrera on my screen, so that's why I was thinking of him. But Anibal Sanchez was terrible in this game for the Nationals. You know, really a just awful start. You need him to be one of your more consistent starters, especially with Strasburg coming back and struggling. And, you know, Scherzer now being out. You need I keep doing that. Sanchez to do well. And so this was just a bad loss for the Nationals. To get crushed on like that at home against the Orioles is bad. But I will give the Orioles credit for what they've done so far this season. You are right. They are in second place in the AL East. They've swept Tampa Bay this season. They beat the Red Sox when they played them. Now they've beaten the Nationals twice. The Orioles have done some pretty impressive things this season. So I have to give them a lot of credit for what they've done so far. This is a good result for them, winning 11-0.
Yeah, it was a good result for them. I didn't really like it. It left a bad taste in my mouth. Room, did you get a chance to check out this debacle from last week, 11-0?
Just some of it. I noticed Chris Davis, he got 2 hits, and that's not good because he only has 4 hits for the entire season. So, he had a double, and at that point you could tell it wasn't going to be the Nationals night.
Yeah. Robbie, did you get a chance to check out? I forgot to ask. Did you get a chance to check out any of the 2-game series versus the Mets, or did you see that anything about that? I think we spoke offline about how bad that 11-0 game was. You got anything to say about those or anything?
The only thing I'll point out for baseball, I have a fun little anecdote. I watched a little bit of the Orioles Nats game. I don't think it was that really big blow. It was pretty early on, and I was showing it to my son Zach, and he's been saying baseball a lot and hitting the ball off the tee, and so excited. And my favorite thing was whenever a pitch happened, he would say, "It's a baseball." And it was just every time he was so surprised. And I was like, oh, man, I wish I was surprised every time a pitch was thrown like that. He was like, baseball, like every time. It was adorable. So there was no hits, though. So in his mind, baseball is just a game of throwing to the catcher. Because in that, it was either a strikeout or a walk for every play on that inning. So it's like, it was a little boring. But, at least he was very excited about baseballs being thrown. So.
Yeah, it was definitely an ugly game to watch.
I also get excited when baseballs are thrown.
I think you get a little more excited than Zach does, Brian.
Yeah, maybe even more than Zach.
All right, let's get to the almost last game of the week. I didn't really recap I need to cover that though also. Let me switch up the graphic on that one. And then in the second game of the 2-game series, the Nationals, they were up 3-0 going into the top of the 8th. End up giving up 5 runs in the top of the 8th and lose the game 5-3. We mentioned Sean Doolittle earlier. He was they gave Hudson the loss, but Doolittle was the reason for the loss. He should have got the L because he gave up 2 back-to-back solo home runs in a 3-0 game. Made it 3-2. I believe got another man on. Hudson came in to try to, do his thing, and unfortunately, it turned into a 5-run 8th inning. Winning pitcher of record is Sean Armstrong. He went 1 2/3, giving up 1 hit, no runs with 2 strikeouts. As I said, Daniel Hudson took the loss. That puts him at 1-1. He went 2/3, giving up 2 hits with 3 earned runs. And saved by Miguel Castro. He went 1 inning, no hits, no runs, 2 strikeouts and a walk. Excuse me. Everything was going well for the Nats. They had built a 3-0 lead going into the 8th. As I mentioned, I was thinking, they could, salvage, at least get one out of the series after losing 11-0. And then they turn around. I had on the second TV, and I saw the first home run and made it 3-1. I was like, okay. We're going to get it together. And I saw the second one go out. I was like, did that a replay? No, that's another one. So it was 3-2. So I'm like, okay. It's going to be interesting. The nail biter. Then next thing I know, I see a man on. And I see Hudson coming. And I'm like, okay, Hudson is good when inheriting runners on base. He normally, take care of his business. And I believe it was another home run that made it 5-3. And a bad loss, in my opinion, when you were that close to get to the finish line. Brian, what did you take away from this heartbreaking loss that they snatched from the jaws of victory?
I mean, this is definitely their worst loss of the season so far. You think about how clutch and how reliable Doolittle and Hudson were last season for them. I mean, they are a huge part of why they won the World Series last year. Getting Hudson was huge. And, to blow a game like that, when you have the lead, and actually I believe the 2 home runs that Doolittle gave up, I could be wrong. I believe they were both pinch hit home runs, which makes it even worse, honestly. This is definitely the worst loss of the season. Doolittle actually deleted his Twitter account after this game because he was getting so abused on Twitter.
Wow.
So, which is an interesting move by him. You wonder if he regrets not opting out the season at this point. But definitely a bad loss. Anytime, I think Soto actually hit a home run in this game. So you waste that. You just waste just a bad loss. I'd say bad loss for the Nationals.
Yeah, it was a hard one to swallow after that one. Arun, did you check this game out and see this heartbreak that reminded us of the early 2019 season with the bullpen issues that they had last year?
Yeah, I watched a lot of this game. I would say it's either this loss or the Yankees loss is the worst loss of the season. But I think Soto, was this the game where Soto also slid into third base and he was tagged out? He slid past the base again.
I think that was.
And then and then the Nats, they were 1 for 10 against the Orioles and runners in scoring position. It was just like kept having runners on, and they looked like they were going to get more than 3 runs even before this, but then they just kept getting like shut down in these rallies. Doolittle, he came in, which was weird because Rainey had 9 pitches, and you thought he was going to come in the 8th because he really shut down like the Orioles. But then Doolittle came in, he hit back-to-back, as he said, and he almost gave up another home run to Chris Davis. And I was like, that's the only out that Doolittle got. So I don't even know if that really counts that much. Then they took him out. And then I think it's much more different for Hudson to come in the 8th. Just like, I got to pitch 2 innings and get everybody out. So maybe that was in the back of his mind. No excuses. He still gave up 3-run home run, and they lost the game. And I think the Orioles, they won the last series against the Nationals. It's just like a weird dynamic going on there.
Yeah, it was Doolittle. I know he was talking about opting out, earlier. I'm not saying he should, but he's definitely, something isn't right. I don't know. I didn't haven't had a chance to examine if it's delivery or he's tipping his pitches or what's going on. But that's not what we're used to seeing from Doolittle and Hudson. It happens sometimes. Like I said, coming in the 8th inning, different leverage position. Man on as opposed to coming in with clean bases. It was just disheartening to see them lose a game like that they looked like they had total control of, and it all just went to hell in 1 inning. And that's never a good thing. And let's go ahead and get into the last game, which was postponed due to rain. Strasburg took the mound. At the time of the postponement, due to rain, it was a 5-2 lead for the Orioles. From what I saw, Strasburg didn't have the best outing. He went 4 1/3, giving up 7 hits, 5 earned runs with 2 strikeouts and a walk. I didn't get a chance to check out any of it for real to see how he looked. They said he struggled a little bit. He had some issues with, I think he said, in his throwing hand, muscle spasm or cramp or something. So this game was postponed, suspended, as I should say. Probably going to make it up because they believe, like we talked about, they played the Mets and the Orioles 12 times in the next week or so. So they'll probably make it up on one of the games that they play in this upcoming week when we get into the upcoming schedule.
Yeah, so I had a question real fast, and I didn't get to watch it, but my dad had mentioned he's on vacation and he had heard that the Nationals were unable to get the tarp out because actually they could have finished the game, but they were unable to get the tarp out. Now they have to finish a game in the other stadium, so they're going to play it in Baltimore. Yeah, I thought that's so weird. Like, what it was? Does anyone know what the tarp malfunction was? Like,
they just had trouble getting the tarp out and on the field. Like, they were struggling with it, and there's video of it online. I haven't seen it, but they just had trouble. They just had trouble getting it off. It's like it's just one of those weird things. And if they had gotten the tarp on the field, they would have been able to postpone the game. But now they have to finish it because they had the tarp malfunction. So that they're going to finish it, I believe, on they're playing the Orioles this weekend, right? So I believe they're finishing it sometime this weekend at the series at Camden Yards.
Right. Yeah. They're definitely going to do that. It's funny because if you check out the box score on Yahoo, it says there's currently 2 live games because that game is suspended, so they don't know how to stop it. So right now it's saying on my camera, I don't know if you can actually see this, but there's 2 live games going on, which is kind of funny. That's a weird rule. So if because there was a tarp error, they have to finish the game now.
I guess.
What a bizarre rule! I've never heard of that before.
Isn't it 6 innings for a game that counted as suspended? Since it was only 5 innings, that might have had something to do with it also.
Yeah.
No, they were in the 6. I thought
they would get ready to start the 6. I think.
But they had done 5 full innings, so that's a complete game. That's a full game.
So it's 5. I thought it was 6 innings, making it complete.
No, it's 5 innings is a full game.
Harp conspiracy.
Tarp conspiracy. Hopefully the Nats come back and win, and then that'll be known as the Tarp game.
Yeah, because they'll still be the home team in Baltimore, so that should be fun if they win.
Well, we've already been the road team in Washington, right? So
full circle, man. It's crazy. This season's going to be wild. Hopefully they complete the season. They've had.
I hope they don't. Then we get to still be champs. That's what I'm banking on right now.
Cool, but I'm gonna miss baseball, man. It's just
I hope they get almost to the end, one game. So then they play. You got 59 games, and then they still are the champs.
But then you're gonna want the playoffs, man. You can't go through the whole season and not get the playoffs.
That's assuming that we're making the playoffs, right? So if we're not making the playoffs, then I want it to be done. If we are making the playoffs, sure, I want to.
It's still early. They 4-7. Not too bad. 5th in the East. They can get it together, get hot. 60 games. They played 11. So it's still time to right the ship. They're not too bad. Just they got to get it together, man. Tonight is a good sign. 16-2. We'll see what they do tomorrow.
Arun, do you have any other thoughts on the Tarp game or any of these crazy?
I was just saying, if I don't jinx it, I think we're probably going to be 5-7, or not going to be 5-7.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Hey man.
Hopefully we don't play this.
It ain't over till all the zeros are filled up on the scoreboard. Gotta stay optimistic.
All right. Do you want me to go over the upcoming schedule, Carol?
Yeah, you can go ahead and break those down.
Sure.
I think I got some more.
All right. We got some Mets games. We got one on Tuesday at 7:10, Wednesday at 7:10, Thursday at 1:10. And then we continue to play Baltimore. At some point, they're continuing that other game we just talked about, but I'm not exactly sure when that comes back. But I know there is also a game on Friday at 7:35, Saturday at 7:35, and Sunday at 1:05. My gut feeling is they should do a doubleheader on the 110 game, but I don't know.
They can't do that on Sunday because of Sunday Night Baseball. Sunday Night Baseball has an exclusive Sunday night thing.
But if it's a 110 game, can't they do like a 4 o'clock game?
Well, I'm actually looking at the schedule right now, and it has a 5:05 start time on Friday for the first game and a 7:35 start.
There you go.
Oh, there it is.
There you go.
They're going to
that makes sense that you'd have to probably do it first because you're about to continue.
Yeah, so that'll be a 5:05 start on Friday before the 7:35 start.
Got it. And then we have the 7:35 on Saturday, and then the 1:05 on Sunday, and then on Monday they're going to be at Atlanta, so we'll cover that game live next week as well.
Yeah, this is the first time the Nats going to be traveling, so. My fingers crossed that, because that's where the issues come in when you're traveling, going through airports, going to different hotels, not saying that they're not clean, but you're interacting with different people that might, have it or might be asymptomatic or whatever. So if they don't wear their mask or, properly disinfect, who knows what could happen, man. So this is going to be the first time the Nats are actually traveling.
Stay out of the strip clubs, right? Especially in Atlanta. That's where all the lobbies are.
No Magic City.
Tell Lou Williams to order the chicken wings through DoorDash for now on. He doesn't have to actually go to the club to get the wings. They taste the same when they get delivered, all right? But,
he was looking at different type of thighs.
Yeah, he was looking at some other thighs. I know they serve thighs at the club. I thought it was only wing dings and little wings. I know they serving thighs. He must really love them thighs in that club.
Alrighty. Well, Carol, we did it. We got a big show tonight, and we got a lot more to cover next week. We're gonna start off with hockey next week for sure. We're going to have some baseball coverage. Maybe we'll talk a little bit of Redskins and maybe a little boxing and thrown in there too.
Swear jar. Finally got
Dang
you.
it. Dang it. I will always hail to that team. But anyway, the Washington football team. We will talk about them if anything comes out of the training camp that's not people beating up their significant others.
Try to stay away from that.
Right. We'll try to stay away from that. That's a good
strangling, I guess.
Strangling, right?
Yeah. That's even worse. Yeah. Can't be
Yikes.
About. Yeah.
I think that was for the record. I know we talked about it at the beginning of the show. I think it was the right move. I just think you just got to distance yourself from that at this point. And if you're going to try to say that you're turning over a new leaf, you got to do it at all facets. And even if they may not be right, might not, in the end, who knows? But at this point, if you're trying to have a new culture, you got to start from the beginning.
No doubt.
All right. Anything else, Arun, before we let you go tonight?
Just back to the Wizards. It was nice to see Charles Barkley and Draymond Green shout out Rui Hachimura, and I guess I'm not surprised by the Phoenix Suns because Villanova's Mikal Bridges is a starter there. That's it. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it was fun having you. I enjoyed having you in baseball and basketball talk, and we'll have you back on soon.
Thanks.
All right, Brian, any final thoughts for you before we let you go tonight?
Just the usual. Astros are cheaters. Free Ramon Laureano. And let's go Yankees. Have a good one.
We never had the debate.
It's too late now. It's too late now.
Instead of having a debate, we can do that next week. Let's talk
about
the brawl that ensued. Let's talk about the brawl that ensued.
We're just going to keep teasing the debate until it actually happens.
Yes,
let's talk about the brawl that ensued between Oakland and Houston.
That's why I said free Ramon Laureano. Free Ramon Laureano.
All right, man. Y'all gonna keep on throwing these Astros when they come out with some bats and start busting folks in the head because they getting tired of getting thrown at. Then we gonna have a whole nother situation.
Good, then they'll be suspended. That'll be great.
Hey, man, look, y'all gotta let it go, man. They fired.
They won't know what's coming.
They fired the coach. They fired the bench boss. I mean, what else do you want, man? What else can you give, man?
Cut all ties with all players that were involved.
Yeah. Oh, come on.
That's what I want.
I'm putting it there.
They just deserve to get what's coming to them. That's all I'll say.
And they got to lose. Come on, they lose their job off of one so-called cheating scandal. And come on. Then if that happens with all the stuff that goes on, the stuff that pushes the envelope, you got to look at it all of that then. So with the guys that's not doing things properly, they have too much pine tar on their back. And all that, you're going to throw the book at them, too? Because it can't just because of this, scandal, all of a sudden you want to throw the book at them.
I'll throw the book at them if they win and it's tainted.
World Series, yeah.
That's the difference.
No,
right?
I've heard the record saying Stealing signs has always
Yes,
been
agreed with that. Agreed with that.
Yeah.
Stealing signs has always been part of baseball. They just added a technological advantage to it, which is cheating, which is wrong. But, the consequences came down. I mean... It is what it is. Just throwing at folks and all of that. It ain't going to make it no better. It ain't going to change nothing. It's going to get somebody hurt and then players getting suspended for 10% of the season or 12% of the season, all to prove some BS point that ain't going to get nothing done but hurt your team because then now you're not in there to play. So, I mean, they can continue to do it, but the more they do it, the bigger the suspension is going to be. Then you're losing key players, that you are going to need if you want to make a run to the World Series. Is it really worth it? Then you want to complain about losing another World Series because you didn't have your players because you want to keep throwing at people. I mean, you can't have it both ways, man. You got a quality team. Why even jeopardize it? I mean, it's in the past 3 years ago now, and you still, throwing at folks 3 years later, possibly injuring them.
Well, I mean, we just found out this offseason, so...
Yeah, it's true. We just found out. Yeah. And they did it again against the Nationals, too. So you're saying it was just 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And what did the Nationals do? They used it against them.
That's great.
Strasburg used it against them in that crucial Game 6. Game 7, the wheels just fell off because the Nationals prevailed in the game. So if there's a prospect or thought about it that they're doing some things illegal, don't whine about it. Make adjustments and use it against them. That's what a true athlete and true team and true coach does. You don't throw at players 3 years later because you're just finding out, they had an unfair advantage, let's throw at them now.
Well, it's not 3 years. They found out about a year ago that this is their opportunity. But regardless of that, I'm salty because I never root for Texas teams, and I rooted for that team for Liz's family, and I regret it, and it makes me mad. And so, yeah, that's part of it. But I do, on the positive note, we'll end it on a positive note. My son went to bed. He looked very cute, and he's wearing all Nationals stuff. So we'll say that there's a new Nationals fan. He's very excited about baseballs being thrown. And if anyone wants to celebrate the championship, which you can see over here, you can definitely check out our merch. You know, our District of Champions. You can get the big banners and the DARPs, and you can even get screen cases for your phone and all that sort of stuff. And I even am rocking the shirt today as well. So District of Champions merch. We want to support the movement. SportsOTHP.com. You can click apparel and accessories, and you can also get the Washington football team apparel as well. If you don't like that there is no logo for them, you can get our logo in burgundy and gold. So go check that out as well. I know that Carol likes the sweatshirt he got for that earlier.
Yes, indeed. Nice and warm too, and everything. Be on the lookout for SportsOTHP apparel. Partnering up with Eric Kuzza. I forgot to shout them out earlier. Eric Kuzza with the nice apparel line, local. Two nice gentlemen handling their business. Make sure you check them out. Be on the lookout. We got some partnership things in the works that you'll see our logo on some of their stuff and some of their logos on some of our stuff. And if you catch me on the street, don't be afraid to holler at me because I'll probably have some merch to sell right out the trunk, just like they used to do back in the old days. So be on the lookout. Make sure you go check out SportsOTHP.com. Make sure you go check out my YouTube channel that I'm streaming on now, Carol Porter III with 3 eyes. And just be on the lookout for so much more we got in store for SportsOTHP, True Radio Network, and some of the other enterprising things that I've started behind the scenes. But Arun, let the folks know where they can find you before we get up out of here, man.
Who, me?
Yeah, I said Arun, my bad. Yeah, Arun, go ahead, let them know when we get Brian. We know y'all got all that social media.
Oh yeah, I don't know. I guess you can find me on Twitter and on Discord, and that's about it. No, thanks for having me on.
All right, Arun, appreciate it as always, man. Big Brian, let them know where they can find you and what you're working on next, man.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at bbrian1991. Follow me for sports takes at Brian B Sports Takes. Other than that, have a good night, everybody. Thank you for having me on.
Hey, man, no problem. Always love having you on, man. Robbie, so what you got in the works coming up, man? I know you're probably working on something sports related. I know I'm gonna try to get some stuff out in the works. Maybe get some articles with the Washington football team since it's been kind of quiet. What you got on the horizon? What you working on there before?
Yeah, I'm just excited about hockey. You know, this has been really fun, and I definitely want to do more videos and get some more people on. Maybe do more of these little Zoom, Facebook Lives, and try to get that out there. We just redid our website, so sportsothp.com. We'll post some of these cool videos that we've been doing on there, and I'm excited that we're on the podcast platforms, and so. It's just been fun breaking it down. I'm really excited about the Caps game. I'm super excited that my boss is letting me take the day off for putting that extra hours in today because I was really nervous, especially because I was supposed to go into work that day, so it would have been tough. So I really appreciate that. I'm really looking forward to the series. I hope we are able to beat Barry Trotz. I hope it's like a laugher of a series since that never happens for the Capitals. So it's always 6 or 7. We never seem to like 4 or 5. We're not going to make predictions. We got through the whole show without doing it, but I'm hoping that it's not a 7-game barn burner like it seems to always be.
Between these two teams with Trotz on the team, I mean, to think it's not going to go 7, I think is foolish. I think it's definitely going to go.
Oh, I think it will.
Yeah,
I just don't want it to.
I think it'll go 6, probably 7, because they know each other pretty well. Depending on if the Capitals can get into sync and continue to play strong defensively, because we know what the Islanders are going to try to do. They try to neutral zone, shut them down so they can't get the fast entries. They try to shut down some of the accurate passing that they do, and that's the one thing the Caps are going to have to simplify their game, which is why I kind of like the neutral site, because when they're on the road, they simplify their game and they don't do all the fancy passes off the boards and wraparound passes and all of that, which leads to turnovers. So I think that with this neutral site thing, I think they'll be okay.
Yeah, for me, it's I think John Carlson, how injured is he? And was it precautionary, or is he really hurt? And Nicholas Backstrom, who seemed hurt the last couple of days and was questionable for that last game, he seems a step slow. But I think if they can play, Orlov can bottle up that hitting power and just sound defensive play, and Faveri continues to improve. And if we can keep that sound defensive game going, I was really happy that last game was a 2-1 kind of grinded out end of a game, because that's what playoff hockey is. And I know that some of the round robin games have been lackluster at times, but I'm kind of happy that was how it ended against a physical team in a close game, because those are the games you're going to have to win.
Yeah, definitely. You know, those playoff style games, those are very key. Got to stay out of the penalty box. You got to, when you do get the opportunity to get, an extra man, you got to take advantage of it. And you got to play sound, fundamental hockey, and wait your time to make that move. You can't try to force the action. Playoff hockey is a whole different beast. We've seen over the decades of the Capitals having misfortunes, and we saw the year of glory and how things went. When, like I mentioned all the time about them winning all the series on the road, coming back from 0-2 of Columbus, losing the first two at home, and winning 4 straight. Finally beating the Penguins on their ice in Game 6. Those 2 shutout performances in the Eastern Conference Finals against Tampa Bay to secure the berth to the Stanley Cup Finals. And I said it before, if it wasn't for that cheap cross check by Ryan Reeves on John Carlson, they could have swept the Golden Knights and rolled off into the sunset with one of the best runs ever. I mean, it's still one of the top runs in NHL history, doing what they did. When it was 8 games on the road, and playing as well as they did. So I'm still thinking this team can get that mojo back. And when you got Ovechkin on your team and you're playing solid defense, man, the sky's the limit, especially when you got quality goaltenders.
2 things before we go. One is TJ Oshie. He needs to stay healthy. I think missing him at the end of last year was crucial. When he got hurt. I think he in that second line and how they're going to match up is going to be key. Nicky, him, and obviously we haven't really talked much about Jake the Snake Verana. He hasn't played particularly great. I think he can take it to another step as well. There was a couple of questions that happened during the hockey feed that we didn't get to just for timing. But one was a really good question, which was from Christopher Clark. Which line matchups do you like best for Washington versus New York Islanders? Is it the OV, Backy, Oshie versus Barzell and stuff? But Ovi hasn't been with Backy and Oshie in a while. But it does bring up a point that I'll be curious to see if the lines stay the same or if they sometimes do go back to that, switch it up a bit, put Kuzi with Verana at times, because they've done well together at times too. So it'll be interesting to see if the lines stay the same. And what sort of line matchups do you find interesting in that?
It's definitely that the top line is definitely going to be the key, because they want to get the top defensive pairing. And Trotz, is a matchup guy, so he's probably going to put his top line against the Caps' top line. I think the most important line is going to be the third line, just because we know the top 2 lines are pretty much going to negate themselves. They're going to take advantage of opportunities. They might get, some crucial goals at a crucial time, but it comes to that secondary scoring. And the third line, we know the fourth line is talented. They can grind. They can, take, that's that momentum stopping line. When the other team has momentum, you put that line out there that's going to forecheck, that's going to hit hard, that's going to, grind it out and make it hard for the other team. But that third line is, I think, is what's going to be the key to getting quality scoring out of that line. You mentioned Jacob Rana. I was praising him, throughout the season, how he was stepping up and, getting his career high in goals and making plays when they were there and, taking advantage of the situation like we, always talked about. Andre had the potential, but he never really took that next step here. He definitely stepped up in Colorado. So I think that, hopefully Jacob gets back into the form he was before the long break. And I think they're going to get it together. We mentioned Tom Wilson earlier. I think he's going to be crucial, and I think Ron is going to play a crucial role in it too. I mean, Ovi's going to do his thing. Folks are going to be keen on him, but he's still going to do his thing, get his goals and make some outrageous passes when they, doubling him or bracketing him. So it's going to be an interesting series. I I think it's going to go 7. I think just with these teams, with Trots being so familiar with the Caps and these being division, foes, I got a feeling it's going 7.
If it does go 7, just so people know, there would be a back-to-back to end this series. It would be a Saturday and Sunday, Game 6 and Game 7. So that would be interesting for sure. And it shows that we've been co-hosts for a very long time. A lot of what you were saying, I actually mentioned last night on the Power Play Point podcast about the third and the fourth line. Because the secondary scoring was so key in that 2018 run. And I think that Ovechkin would have made it a lot further in a lot of other seasons if he had other people show up. I mean, he showed up almost every single playoff. People forget that. They're like, oh, he didn't show up. He's like, no, actually, no one else showed up to help him. He's been a point per game in the playoffs for his whole entire career, which is incredible. And it's incredible to do that in the regular season. It's even more amazing to do that in the playoffs. And he's always been a great playoff performer, and I definitely am excited. And I am curious, how much did they leave in the tank? Were they really trying, or, I mean, the seeding didn't really matter that much, or were they just sort of going through the motions? We'll see shortly when they get to that next level, and I'm really looking forward to Wednesday, and next Monday we'll break down those first 3 games.
No doubt. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how these playoffs play out, because, this is new uncharted territory for us. You got teams that normally wouldn't be in there that's in there. You got teams that, was playing well during the season that you thought was going to be a contender. Now you're not too sure about. And, it's going to be interesting. But definitely check us out. Next week we'll break down some more of the playoffs. The Nats are up 16-4 in the bottom of the ninth with 2 outs. Doolittle's on the mound to get some work. I believe he just gave up a home run. But, it didn't hurt because they were up 13 runs. So I'm checking them out now, trying to check out if this is mechanics or something that's off, why he's giving up so many home runs. But they got a 16-4 lead with 2 outs in the bottom of the ninth, so this should be a curly W in the books. That'll put the Nats at 5-7. We'll definitely break down this game and the rest of the games that we already talked about next week on the show.
I think we're good.
Yeah, that's pretty much about it. I'm ready to shut it down. And y'all make sure y'all check us out, SportsOTHP, True Radio Network, Beats by CP3, DC Sports.